All right. AZ Mary says first there was Trump derangement syndrome. Now it is Russia Ukraine derangement syndrome.
Yeah, true, absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that, AZ Mary. Eternal Optimist, thank you for that super chat. JC Adder, thank you for that super chat. Bohemian Gnostic says the sunk cost fallacy is an escalation of commitment without an expectation of return.
Yeah, quite true. That's exactly
Thank,
what we're seeing with
thank
Ukraine. Quite right.
Shady Shady Lady, thank you for that super sticker. WOTB, thank you for that super chat. Fox Drake says, please talk more about Russia, China, and the new gold silver standard. Are you Russia, China, huge reserves, replace US dollar? As an American, I'd love to return to gold.
Yeah, well, I mean, the Russians are moving towards a currency, or at least they got an expert committee working to put the dollar, to put the ruble, to link the ruble to gold and a basket of other commodities. We don't yet know fully where the Chinese currency, which I call the RMB, by the way, will fit into all of this, but presumably at some point it will. That's the guess. And that would, it seems to me, create a genuine, viable alternative financial and currency system, which would be a major challenge to the fiat-based currencies of the West, and primarily the dollar. What influence that will have on the dollar remains to be seen. But I want to stress again, the Russian-Chinese project is still very much a work in progress, and we'll just have to wait and see how it all works out. But you're quite right. The aggregate resources that the Russians and the Chinese could, in theory, bring to this are huge. And that's what makes this a real possibility and a real challenge.
Damo Gerard says, to what extent could some European leaders be intentionally committing suicide by sanctions as a mechanism to break up Europe and get some sovereignty back?
I don't believe that. I mean, which European leaders? Did Draghi, Scholz, Macron? I mean, I can't see any one of them. Mark Rutte in the Netherlands. These people are all absolutely signed up to this project. I mean, Baerbock and Habeck are Euro fanatics. I mean, I don't think any of them are thinking in that kind of way.
Sparky says, smugnorance is bliss. Thank you, Sparky, for that. Jahanger says, probably the best time for a collective West summer. The West needs to experience its own medicine of regime change and fragmentation. Based on what I hear here, collective West is human value void.
I so completely agree. Can I just say again, I think you're making the absolute sound point. They have never really believed that if they, that anybody would do to them what they do to others. They assume they can sanction everybody. They never believed that they could themselves be sanctioned. They assumed that they could inflict economic destruction and mayhem on others. They're now shocked to discover that the same can be visited on themselves. And that's something that in the West we've not experienced on this scale at any time before in our history. I mean, the Arab oil embargo of 73 was a minor blip by comparison.
North Shore Girl says, thank you for all you do. Rakbas, thank you for that super sticker. Jeff Bickford, thank you for that super chat. And Jay Galt says, if the euro crashes, does that slow inflation in the US? Perhaps that's their objective.
Well, it might do. I have to say, if the euro crashes in the short term, it would be it would strengthen the dollar, and that might also lower inflationary pressures in the US. But of course, the danger is that it would create a whole host of other problems, like perhaps a much bigger US trade deficit, which could create more problems, going forward too. The best solution for America's economic problems is not crashing the euro. It is pursuing a reindustrialization program within the United States itself. All the means to do it are there. That was what America First was supposed to be about. It never fully happened. But the means to do it are there. The United States can do it. The United States should do it financial warfare is not the way in the end.
De Autophilos says USA population control through famine.
Mm, I hope not. I mean, I
For,
I think that was a terrifying idea, actually.
456T123G says these evildoers are afraid of the truth because it will reveal them for what they are, the prophet. Thank you for that super chat. Balke says reality is the concrete quay that will stop the bobbing ship of BS.
Yeah, beautifully said.
Thank you
Beautifully
very much
said.
for that, Balke. Patricia says absolutely correct that U.S. subsidies will end up in the hands of oligarchs, aristocrats who will use it to buy up farmland and properties, a plan to take us back to feudalism.
Yeah.
Thank you for that, Patricia. Wayne says the Kronomorsk Varna shipping lane, Odessa to Varna, as well as the Istanbul connection, run directly abeam of Snake Island.
Yeah.
In the long term, this island will have to be in Russian hands.
Well, quite possibly. But I mean, in terms of this war, I don't think Snake Island has any strategic significance. In the longer term, it may do. And can I just say, I understand that during the Cold War, the Soviet Union operated a very powerful radar station on Snake Island, but that's of course been dismantled a long time ago.
Herman, thank you for that super chat. Robert, thank you for that super chat. Shelly, thank you for that super chat. Wasa Bista says the MSM keeps lying that Ukraine is winning and Putin is desperate to cover for a false flag to blame on Russia, chemical or even nuclear.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is our concern.
Garland Nixon says, keep up the good work.
Garland,
You,
it's a
Garland,
joy to have you on our programs, and a huge point of pride for us that you're following us.
Balke John says Poland will not be allowed by Russia into its war zone. Under their cover, arms and troops would come in to fight the Russians.
I think Putin actually has made that clear. I mean, I heard very carefully all the things that Gonzalo was saying about a possible Russian-Polish deal over Western Ukraine. I've seen no sign that anything like that has been agreed. And my own view about Putin's statement about 2 weeks ago about lightning strikes is that it was intended as a warning to Poland.
Meg, thank you for that super sticker. Augusto, thank you for that super chat. Jay Galt says politically, the U.S. Air Force may have trouble justifying its existence if the Russian air defense is as good as claimed, 1.3 trillion for F-35s.
I think it is as good as claimed. And I'm going to say something. One of the big revelations for me about this war is exactly how good the Russian air defense system is. I mean, they don't seem to have much difficulty shooting down, Tochka U ballistic missiles, for example, and even missiles or rather shells launched by multiple rocket launchers. So, they clearly are extremely well organized. They've also, by the way, been able to successfully defeat drone attacks. So it's clearly a very well organized air defense system, and it reflects the different investment strategies of the two great global military superpowers. The US went for ever more advanced fighter jets. The Russians went for ever more advanced air defense systems. I'm not going to try and guess at the moment who's more superior, but it clearly is a very advanced air defense system indeed.
Balke says any Polish troop concentration will be met with hypersonic missiles, just like the Yavoriv hypersonics do not allow for warning and thus root dispersal.
Absolutely correct. That's exactly what will happen. By the way, on the Snake Island battle, the Russians apparently launched supersonic missiles, which were used to break up the Ukrainian concentrations. So think of what hypersonic missiles might do, which are much faster.
T Tom says Gonzalo is wrong. I see it that NATO will be engaged from Poland and Romania. All the rhetoric is going in that direction. Also, negative sentiment grows, and the only exit from recession is war.
I am afraid I lean more to your view than Gonzalo's, but we shall see. I hope Gonzalo is right, and we are wrong, by the way.
Agastao says, please comment about the drugs on the battlefield.
Yeah, I've heard lots about this, and I would say it's not the first time. I mean, by the way, the Germans did this on a huge scale during the Second World War, and it explains why the German army was able to keep advancing and fighting long after, normal soldiers would have become tired. So it doesn't surprise me, and this isn't the first time. But of course, ultimately, it's another way of burning your people out. Anyway, there's now accumulating evidence that this has happened, or rather that this is happening. That soldiers on the lines are being provided with these stimulants, and it doesn't surprise me at all, given the kind of military that Ukraine seems to operate, and given what is said to be some of the habits of some of the political leaders in Kiev.
General Zhang Mei says, no safe rooms to run to in a sustained artillery barrage. The real question should be how many woke snake flakes would wet to their beds if the West brought back conscription?
Quite true enough. There isn't going to be conscription in the West, partly for that reason. I mean, the reaction in Britain, if conscription were reordered, I can tell you would be, well, I mean, it would be huge. The opposition would be enormous. But about artillery barrages, what you say is exactly what I've heard. There is no escape from them, even in bunkers or things. I mean, the sheer volume of noise and the sheer pressure is just apparently beyond description.
Fellow Ethelbert says, if scenario-wise modern Ukraine, EU, UK, US infantry clashed with modern Russia, China, India infantry forces, would the casualties be high for Russia like in World War II?
They would be enormous on both sides. I mean, let's be very clear about this. I mean, one shouldn't underestimate the technological resources available to both sides in that kind of conflict. And we've already seen a lot of high technology weapons used in Ukraine, but nothing like on the scale that would happen in that kind of a war. I'm not going to predict the outcome of a war like that. I hope it never happens.
Zachary Jarvie says Finland and Sweden join NATO. Russia retaliates with World War III.
Well, I don't think they'll retaliate with World War III, but as I said, they will certainly take military steps to counter this. And of course, they will eventually take economic steps too. Finland has made a disastrous mistake. And I really mean Finland more than Sweden. I mean, Finland came off lightly, very lightly after the Second World War, precisely because it agreed a neutrality treaty with what was then the Soviet Union. Now it's gone back on all of that, and the Russians must be saying to themselves, perhaps we treated Finland too lightly in the past. I mean, we supported Finland. Finland prospered through its neutrality, through its trade with Russia. Maybe in future, and remember, Finland's a small country, 5 million people. Maybe in future, when we're in a position to, we're going to make sure that Finland isn't going to do the same thing to us that they've just done now. In other words, betray promises that they made to remain neutral in 1948.
Okay, Jean says, Gonzalo, how does that rump Ukraine become neutral, as you say?
Very good question. I've been thinking about this, and I'm increasingly wondering whether a rump Ukraine, like we've been talking about, is actually viable. It might be set up, and it could be a transition. But I wonder whether, if we ever get to that point, Russians control all the land east of the Dnieper. They also controlled the Black Sea coast. Whether this impoverished central Ukraine, rump Ukraine around Kiev, wouldn't eventually fall into the Russian orbit as well.
G-Dog says, isn't the real game Finland? Pentagon knows their weapons don't work.
No, I don't think the real game is Finland. I think there's been an agenda to bring Finland into NATO, by the way, for a very, very long time. I think this has always been there. But I don't think it was the agenda. I don't think, sorry, this was the plan. I think, as I said, this is a rather squalid consolation prize for the eventual loss of Ukraine, dare I say it. But I don't think this is what this was all about at all. I think this is really very much about Ukraine. And from a Russian point of view, it was entirely about Ukraine.
Reza says, gentlemen, any updates on the biolabs?
You know, the Russians have produced a massive series of documents about this, showing that all the usual people that we've heard about, all the usual pharmaceutical companies, I'm not going to name them, are involved, all sorts of institutes in Germany, which were also involved during the coup, that they were involved too. This is a huge document dump, which I'm still working through.
General Zhang Mei says the Western Snowflake Army will be playing Sunshine and Lollipops in the front lines, expecting the Russians to greet them with rose petals and candy.
Well, I think there's some truth to that, by the way, but you goodness, if they do go into battle with those kind of ideas, well, let's say the battle would be very short.
Zahir, thank you for your super chat. Michael Robinson says you guys should stop calling it a retreat. In military terms, it's called a tactical withdrawal, and there are many reasons to conduct one.
Indeed, and by the way, despite the usual triumphalist propaganda about it, I noticed that even the British Ministry of Defence, which never misses an opportunity to criticise the Russians, ridicule the Russian war effort, praise the Ukrainian one, they admitted that it was a planned withdrawal, not a successful Ukrainian counteroffensive.
General Zhang Mi says a Russian victory will be the end of the globalist neoliberal fascist great NWO agenda.
That's what Sergei Lavrov, the Russian foreign minister, has said.
And Robert Jarava says, hopefully a Russian victory can be preceded with the arrest of Justin Castro. We in Canada can't stand him.
I can't stand him either. I hope he is arrested. I'm not sure by whom, by the way. And there are things that he's done for which I think he can be charged and stand trial for. I'm not going to predict what the outcome of that trial would be, though.
Colin Jones, thank you for that super sticker. Tim Gibson says, shout out to Swan in Finland. Thank you, Tim, for that. Robert Jarava says, the whole Ukraine operation is regrettable, but necessary. Moreover, exciting as its first public action against Khazarian mafia.
I have to say, I think that's a sentiment many people hold, including many people in Russia, including President Putin himself.
Paul, thank you for that super chat. Kyle, thank you for that super sticker. Nikias80 says, the Finnish Minister of Economic Affairs has said that if natural gas would stop, then some factories would shut down. The official stance is still that Finland will not pay in rubles.
Yeah, no, I've heard this. I understand natural gas accounts for only a relatively small part of the Finnish energy mix. But of course, that might be wrong. And it may be anyway that they need natural gas for other things, because, of course, natural gas isn't just used for energy generation.
Paul, thank you for that super chat. Honus What says, why does Schwab have so much influence over Western leaders? Can't they think for themselves?
He doesn't himself just have influence. I mean, you mustn't think of him as, kind of Blofeld figure who runs this vast, sinister organization. What gives Schwab power is that he's the convener of, if you like, a grouping which he played a big role bringing together, but which brings together many, many very powerful power brokers in Europe, especially. And it's this grouping that is powerful rather than Schwab the individual. Schwab is a very articulate, clever spokesman. He puts their positions very well. He's, as I say, plays a role in bringing it together, but it's the people, it's the whole group together. Old money, as I always reiterate, it is they who are powerful, and it is they who are listened to.